Chapter 640 to 642. Suddenly, the pair of eternal Mangekyu Sharingan in Tsukihi's eye sockets created a mild pulsing like a heartbeat without warning. This sensation... She quietly extended out her hand to grip her brow and try to sense it. This alive aspect was probably the origin of the pulsation that occurred without warning just now. The feeble power of creation of all things emerging in Danzo's body was most likely the cause of this sensation. When the feeble power of creation of all things developed in Danzo's body as a result of the yin and yang chakras' unification, the eternal Mangekyu Sharingan within Tsukihi's eyes most likely triggered an innate resonance. This is the typical effect after the Hashirama cells truly unite with our body, Orochimaru declared triumphantly at this point. When Danzo's chief researcher and the two guards witnessed the alterations in Danzo's body, they screamed in excitement, This is wonderful." The power and vitality of the elderly and sluggish bodies had returned, and no one could help but be amazed as they observed this event. Other people in the operating room, unlike Tsukihi, can't genuinely feel the yin-yang or the creation of all things, but they can see the amazing changes in Danzo's body with their naked eyes. Tsukihi observed the various instruments on the side of the operating table, temporarily suppressing the restlessness of the pair of the eternal Mangekyu Sharingan in her eye sockets, and discovered that after the fusion of the yin and yang chakra, in addition to the heartbeat, all other values such as pulse rate, blood pressure, respiration rate, cell division rate, and so on were returning to the normal range. Orochimaru's fusion fluid appears to be better than the fusion fluid I made, Tsukihi muttered inwardly. Danzo's physique is worse and more degraded than Shishui's. But even in this situation, the yin and yang chakra in Danzo's body began to undergo preliminary yin-yang fusion as soon as the fusion fluid created by Orochimaru was put into his body. This fact alone demonstrates that the fusion fluid created by Orochimaru has a far superior effect than the one made by Kuroto. Cough. Danzo on the operation table eventually regained consciousness amid a flurry of coughing. "Hokage-sama, are you okay?" inquired Danzo's two guards as they hurriedly stood up. Danzo braced himself to sit up, fully ignoring the two guards' concerns, and sought to feel the changes in his body for a long time before saying to Orochimaru, "Very well, Orochimaru. You did not disappoint me." "How do you feel?" Orochimaru asked, chuckling. Danzo's ugly face broke into a rare smile. "Better than ever. I feel like I've become 30 years younger." "Don't get too excited," Homusubi cautioned. "This is only the result of the preliminary fusion. Everyone who has successfully transplanted Hashirama cells should experience the same result." When Danzo heard Homusubi's comments, the joy on his face vanished instantly. Because Homusubi's words meant everyone who has successfully transplanted the Hashirama cells would feel this effect. The reason you didn't is simply that you didn't correctly transplant the Hashirama cells and your technology isn't advanced enough. Danzo had truly wanted to turn his face away from Amatsukami and kill her right now if he hadn't remembered that he was still on the operation table and would still need Homusubi's help to keep Orochimaru in control. While Danzo was deflated, Orochimaru went inside the surgery room's freezer and removed a pure white arm. Kuroto hacked off one of those special Zetsu clones' arms not long ago, and this pure white arm is surely the same arm. Kuroto enlisted Naomi's assistance to ensure that this arm made its way into Danzo's hands. Of course, Danzo was dubious when Naomi gave him this one-of-a-kind limb, but after his researchers conducted some tests on it, he was surprised to discover that it not only had the Hashirama cells implanted in it, but also that the cells were not reacting violently in it. The particular effect surprised Danzo. Undoubtedly, the arm was created using cutting-edge biotechnology, but who has access to such cutting-edge biotechnology? These facts increased his suspicions regarding this arm, but despite scanning Naomi's mind for memories and further research into the origins of this arm, he has not been able to locate any information that can assist him in this area. With a pause, he looked at the severed limb in Orochimaru's hand. He's a little hesitant right now. "What Homusubi said just now is definitely correct," Orochimaru replied with a smile. "Only the first stages of fusion have been completed in your body. You have no choice but to replace that rotting arm with this one if you truly wish to exploit the powers of Shodame Hokage-sama's cells and further enhance them. The yin and yang chakra in your body will be partly balanced after you replace that arm with this one." Hearing Orochimaru's explanation, Danzo paused for a moment, then stretched out his withered right hand, studded with countless Sharingan, and asked, "Can you make sure that Shodame-sama's cells don't get out of control during the transplantation process?" Shin's arm must be amputated in order to transplant the Yozetsu clone's arm, but Shin's arm, which is studded with many Sharingan, is what suppresses the Hashirama cells in Danzo's body. The suppression of Sharingan on the Hashirama cells will be eliminated if that arm is removed, and if that happens, the Hashirama cells in Danzo's body will become uncontrollable and totally engulf him. I understand your concerns, but you don't need to be concerned about that. Shodame Hokage cells Samas have achieved primary integration with your body, so even if you temporarily lose Sharingan's support, as long as you don't overdraw chakra, there will be no problem. I can assure you of that." Orochimaru spoke in a calm and gentle manner. "Orochimaru, as long as I succeed," Danzo stated after a moment's thought, "you will have all your wishes fulfilled in the future shinobi world." Orochimaru licked his lips and said, "I look forward to that day." "Let's get this started," Danzo said softly. Orochimaru nodded. "Very well," and began removing the transplanted arm from Danzo's hand. On the surface, this operation appears to be complex, yet it is actually quite simple. Even an Iryo-nin from Konoha Hospital can perform it. There is no risk of rejection, and the success rate is extremely high because Danzo already has Hashirama cells implanted in his body. During the operation, Homusubi noticed that only 7 of Shin's 10 vacancies were filled with Sharingan from the Uchiha clan, while the remaining 3 vacancies were left empty, most likely because Danzo lacked the necessary number of Sharingan after Obito stole many of his inventory, and the Uchiha clan was not annihilated. If the Sharingan embedded in his eye is counted as well, he now has a total of 8 Sharingan. This means Danzo has a total of 9 lives, as he can use Izanagi a maximum of 8 times. Orochimaru just required roughly 30 minutes for the complete arm transplant operation, which apparently included implanting all of Danzo's Sharingan in his new arm. The skill, speed, and ability are so impressive that it astounds everyone, including Homusubi. Orochimaru poured the fusion fluid into Danzo's body once again, once the transplanting and implantation were completed, and Danzo's agonizing cries echoed throughout the operating room. "Ah!" When his 2 guards saw Danzo rolling and shouting in anguish on the operation table, they wiped the cold sweat from their brows. As his most trusted followers, they are too familiar with Shimura Danzo. Shimura Danzo, the previous route commander and current acting leader of Konoha Village, is a precise, somber, and dark figure in their minds. He would never act in such a manner, and they never imagined seeing him in such a position one day. The fusion fluid made by Orochimaru doesn't seem to have any bad consequences that would cause Danzo to howl and roll in anguish. Tsukihi, wearing the Homusubi mask, narrowed her eyes as she watched Danzo's condition. The pain he's in appears to be natural, and it's something that most people can't stand. Well, I suppose he can be commended for his endurance in the face of such adversity. After a long time, Danzo's roaring subsided, and he reverted to his regular state. Orochimaru strained to restrain his laugh and looked at Danzo, whose nose was red and tears were flowing down his face, and asked, "How do you feel?" "Damn it, why is the reaction so big this time?" Danzo grumbled. "Didn't you say the procedure would go off without a hitch?" Any subversive cell fusion will be accompanied by the degradation and death of numerous old cells, Orochimaru explained in a mournful tone of voice. Your old cells, which were far weaker than the Shodaime Hokage-sama's cells, gradually died during the fusion process since the Shodaime Hokage-sama's cells have been transplanted in you and are fusing with you. This is a natural occurrence. What does this mean? Danzo inquired, frowning. In the last 45 minutes, 99% of the cells in your body have experienced violent disintegration and division, Orochimaru remarked. In some ways, you're not the same person you were 45 minutes ago. In other words, you've just finished a cellular replacement of yourself, replacing your original body with one closer to that of Shodaime Hokage-sama's. Hearing this, Danzo became enraged. All of my body's cells have been replaced in less than 45 minutes. There's a major risk here. Why didn't you properly explain this to me earlier? If I had told you, the chances of getting beyond the fusion would have lessened. Orochimaru shrugged. I don't want such a thing to happen again, Danzo said coldly to Orochimaru, his malicious purpose visible in his eyes. Orochimaru, do you get what I'm saying? Do you feel the changes in your body? Orochimaru asked, unconcerned about Danzo's intimidation, as he ignored Danzo's question. My chakra reserves seem to have increased, Danzo said, shaking his fist slowly to feel the changes, and the growth isn't insignificant. However, with a serious face, Danzo shaded his right eye. But what? Orochimaru inquired hopefully. Your visual prowess has also risen, right? Homusubi, who was standing off to the side, whispered softly. How do you know? Danzo inquired, suspiciously looking at Homusubi. Homusubi grinned, uninterested in responding to Danzo's question. Zetsu's cell tissues are without a doubt capable of boosting Sharingan's visual prowess. Obito, whose visual prowess had also increased significantly after he was discovered and saved by Madara using white Zetsu cells, is the best example of this condition. Homusubi is aware of all of this information. Thus, when Danzo covered his eye for a brief moment, she was able to deduce that the Sharingan in his eye had changed. And the most likely possibility is that his visual prowess has improved, making it a little more difficult for him to adjust for a while. Naturally, his visual prowess did not improve significantly, and the Sharingan in his eye is still a 3-tomo Sharingan. After a moment of adjusting, Danzo restrained his excitement and murmured to Orochimaru, Excellent. I am quite pleased with the outcome of this procedure. What makes you think the operation is already over? Orochimaru licked his lips, then remarked with a peculiar smile. Is there still something else to do? Danzo inquired, surprised. No, it's not that there aren't things to do. Rather, I've only just started. The basic goal of this procedure is to change your body. It hasn't even gotten started yet, Orochimaru responded, his visage becoming more and more fanatical and excited with each word. Danzo's demeanor changed when he saw Orochimaru's madness. Could it be that the prior procedures were all just preparations before body modification? Even Homusubi on the side shook when she saw Orochimaru's look, not to mention Danzo on the operation table. Soon after, the core transformation operation began, making it difficult for people to look at it directly. Orochimaru's methods directly influenced the minds and hearts of the bystanders in the room, not to mention others. Even Homusubi, a biotechnology expert, felt her scalp tingling. Nobody knew how long it took, but the nightmare operation was finally over, and when it was, Danzo was encased in layers of sutures and bandages and looked like a mummy on the operating table. Homusubi exited the root base when the operation was completed. She then returned to the Ninja Academy, changing her soul back into the main body. Kuroto recorded everything and examined the alteration operation when he returned to the principal's office. Kuroto had to concede that he had underestimated Orochimaru's body modification and transformation abilities. Shimura Danzo's body had two fundamental flaws. The first was his body's age and lack of cell vitality, making it difficult to integrate other people's cells into his body, and the second was the yin and yang chakra's unstable balance due to the existence of Hashirama cells and Sharingan from the Uchiha clan. But now that the yang chakra has nourished Danzo's body, his entire cellular activity has surged. The yin and yang balance has also been maintained as a result of the Hashirama cell's absorption into his body. This signifies that both of his body's ailments have been resolved. Well, now that Danzo's body transformation operation is complete, all he needs is some rest before moving on to the next step, which is to execute the ritual. "I've put so much effort into this ritual," he grumbled. "I only hope Danzo can remain longer in the ritual so that I can get as much data as possible." "Neji, you did a fantastic job, and your grade is an A+. Iruka smiled and complimented Neji, giving him an A+ in the grade book. On the podium, Neji released the clone technique he had just utilized, bowed to Iruka calmly, and then slid back into his seat. Neji has long mastered this level of ninjutsu. As a result, the stressful assessment for other students poses no challenge for him, and to be honest, he did not feel the least bit proud of Iruka's compliment just now. "Sigh, Neji-kun is a true genius." Iruka grumbled to himself as she observed Neji's placid expression. In Iruka's opinion, a student like Neji is perfect in every way. "Next is Uchiha Sasuke," Iruka said, turning past the page containing Neji's information. "Sasuke-kun, it's your turn." "Please, Sasuke-kun, you've got this." "Sasuke-san, you're the best." The podium was quickly covered by a chorus of applause from the spectators. Without a doubt, all of Sasuke's cheers came from the Academy's girls who had a crush on him, which accounted for more than 90% of the girls. Sasuke stepped up from his seat, his hands in the pocket of his trouser, and walked towards the platform with a cool smile on his face. "Damn! Why does Sasuke get all the attention?" thought Naruto, looking at Sasuke with an envious frown. "Tch!" snorted Kiba from the side. "This guy, Sasuke, is incredibly arrogant. Just wait, I'm getting my Rinnegan shortly, and as soon as that happens, I'm kicking his arse." As Sasuke approached the stage, the students fell silent, and Iruka asked Sasuke, "Sasuke-kun, according to the topic of the assessment, you must demonstrate one of the 3 basic ninjutsu. Which one do you want to demonstrate?" While provocatively staring at Neji, who had just returned to his seat, Sasuke ignored Iruka's query and rapidly weaved the hand gestures and exclaimed, "Kage Bunshin no Jutsu!" Poof! Another Sasuke appeared next to Sasuke with the same appearance and features as Uchiha Sasuke, thanks to a flash of white smoke. Wow! Sasuke-kun is really an expert at Bunshin no Jutsu? Amazing! He and his clone have the same appearance. It's impossible to distinguish between them. And as soon as Sasuke finished the jutsu, the girls in the audience became active again, discussing the jutsu he used and how great he is at it. The majority of the boys were dissatisfied, but they couldn't bring out any flaws, so they had no choice but to remain mute while clenching their teeth. Iruka, on the other hand, was different. He had a dignified expression, unlike adulation or jealousy. Because he could see that the jutsu Sasuke used was not the Bunshin no Jutsu that he should have possessed, but rather Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, which is an extremely difficult jutsu for an academy student to learn and master. And Iruka could clearly see that Sasuke has excellent mastery and control over this jutsu by the ease with which he accomplished it. Aside from Iruka, there were a few other pupils who realized something was wrong but couldn't pinpoint what it was, with the exception of Neji. Only Neji, other from Iruka, knew the jutsu that Sasuke had just used. But unlike Iruka, Neji was unfazed and unconcerned about it. After all, he, like Sasuke, has mastered the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. It's just that he doesn't want to flaunt it like Sasuke is doing right now. As Neji snorted, sparks shot between the eyes, too. Since the day Kuroto single-handedly crushed 8 Jonins of the Uchiha clan, Sasuke and Neji's bond has changed. They are no longer just friends, but rivals, shouldering the reputations of their clans. Of course, their friendship continues, but they also have a rivalry. They've both landed the first spot of the year. "Sasuke-kun," Iruka said sincerely as he stepped closer with a worried gaze. "Isn't it Kage Bunshin no Jutsu that you used? This jutsu, while extremely valuable, comes with a risk. As a result, you should avoid utilizing it for the time being, at least until I'm aware of the danger, Iruka-sensei. You don't have to be concerned. The Uchiha clansmen have stronger chakra reserves than the general public. Now that it's out of the way, sensei, what's my score?" Iruka's remarks were lodged in his throat, and he shook his head in frustration before grading him. "What the hell, Sasuke-kun just did Kage Bunshin no Jutsu?" "Kage Bunshin no Jutsu? That's a ninjutsu at the B level. To learn it, you have to be at least a chunin, right? Is this the Uchiha clan's talent?" Iruka and Sasuke's chat made the already boisterous classroom much noisier. This time, not only the girls, but also the members of the League of Losers, which comprised Naruto, Kiba, Fu, and others, idolized Sasuke. They were also taken aback at this point. Only Rock Lee stood out from the crowd. He had both hands on the table, his eyes were whirling in circles, and he was muttering, it's over," in a terrified tone. "Lee, what are you scared about?" Shikamaru, who was sitting next to him, remarked casually, "Sasuke's use of Kage Bunshin on Jutsu has no bearing on us, and it has no bearing on our grades. If we just use Bunshin no Jutsu, we can still get a good grade." But I can't." Rock Lee shook his head, tears in his eyes and a runny nose. "In that case, utilize one of the other 2 jutsu," Shikamaru suggested casually. "Substitution jutsu can be used. It's a lot less difficult than bunshin on jutsu." The 3 basic ninjutsu are the most fundamental aspects of shinobi training. As a result, these simpler and life-saving jutsu are taught to shinobi clan youngsters at a young age. And because these jutsu are so simple to learn, most of the children from the great clans don't even bother. As a result, children like Shikamaru have long mastered them and are unconcerned about this evaluation. However, this is not the case for children from non-military families. Rock Lee has had a particularly bad run of luck. As a result, he sobbed miserably and added, "I can't utilize substitution jutsu either." "What about the transformation jutsu?" Shikamaru inquired, slightly astonished. "Can't use it either," said Rock Lee, shaking his head. "Then don't worry," Shikamaru said, blinking twice before smiling slightly and patting Rock Lee on the shoulder. "Wait, why?" says the narrator. Lee looked perplexed. "You can't employ either of the 3 fundamental ninjutsu, therefore you'll undoubtedly fail and finish last," Shikamaru stated. "It's pointless to worry about the outcome because it's already been determined and can't be changed. Remain calm and be relaxed. Even if you worry, you won't be able to change a thing." Tenten on the side smiled and covered her mouth. "Shikamaru-kun, do you truly have no idea how to console someone?" Shikamaru was perplexed. "Why?" Tenten didn't have to respond since Shikamaru's answer was given by the unexpected sound of thump. Lee had collapsed on the ground and his eyes had lost focus. He had apparently passed out. "I see. I believe I was a tad too direct." He muttered with a helpless expression, then turned away from Lee and gazed at the podium. On the stage. Uchiha Sasuke. The result of the assessment is A+. Iruka sighed as he saw Sasuke return to his seat casually. The assessment continued after a round of applause from the trainees. The evaluation was eventually completed after a hard day, and the booklet containing all of the kids' grades arrived in Kuroto's office. "Kuroto-san." As he delivered the booklet to Kuroto, Iruka stated, "The assessment is finished, and this booklet reflects the results." Kuroto grinned slightly after taking a quick look at it. As expected, Sasuke and Neji are momentarily tied for top place in the grade with an A+, while the other Shinobi clan students have also performed admirably. Iruka, noticing Kuroto's smile, tentatively inquired, "Do you really want to post the results of this assessment on the bulletin board, Kuroto-san? Isn't this inequitable to the trainees who come from a civilian background?" Rock Lee was the student who finished last in the class. He comes from a civilian background, therefore it's understandable that he couldn't learn any of the 3 bodily procedures. However, posting the results on the bulletin board in this manner, this did not sit well with Iruka. Rules are regulations, and no one is an exception. Even if someone from the Uchiha or the Hyuga came at last, I would still post the results. Kuroto nodded honestly. And letting Rock Lee go through this isn't a negative thing. "I'm concerned that he might," remarked Iruka. "I am aware of your concerns." Kuroto nodded. "I'm concerned that he might," remarked Iruka. "I am aware of your concerns." Kuroto nodded. "Then why?" Iruka inquired. "You don't have to worry about that," Kuroto said calmly. "I have my plans. But to display the test results on the notice board outside the academy, won't it?" Iruka was still a little irritated. Kuroto locked his gaze on Iruka, then sighed and asked, "Answer me, Iruka. You have learned the 3 basic ninjutsu, and you have been teaching them to other children for quite a while. How long do you think it takes a beginner to learn one of the 3 basic ninjutsu?" "This 1 month, I guess?" Iruka tentatively said after a little pause. "If someone can't learn one of the 3 basic ninjutsu in a week, it means they don't have any ninjutsu talent," Kuroto said, shaking his head. "This criterion is actually somewhat relaxed. If Orochimaru's standards are to be followed, anyone who cannot acquire one of the 3 basic ninjutsu in a single day can be labeled as an idiot who has no qualifications to become a shinobi or kunoichi at all. Furthermore, geniuses like Sasuke, Neji, and Kimimaro may learn the 3 basic ninjutsu in as little as an hour. Kuroto gave trainees a full 2 weeks of time, which is more than enough to learn one of the 3 basic ninjutsu techniques. Within 2 weeks, even children from a civilian background who had never been exposed to any type of ninjutsu and knowledge should have mastered one of the 3 basic ninjutsu. Even so, if someone still fails to learn even one ninjutsu, they clearly do not have a ninjutsu talent. This is an undeniable reality. "You mean Rock Lee has no skill for ninjutsu?" Iruka asked, his expression darkening. "Do you want him to be kicked out of the ninja academy?" "I am sure I said a while back that I have plans for him." Kuroto shook his head. "True, he's a ninjutsu failure, but that doesn't mean I'm going to throw him out. Rock Lee is a unique breed of genius. Rock Lee, even if he failed and finished last, is still a very gifted child, in my opinion. It's only that his talent is different from that of his contemporaries." "But won't doing this be too harsh for him?" Iruka wondered, relieved that Kuroto had no plans to remove Rock Lee. Kuroto cast a glance out the window. Warmth and sheltered shinobi are not tolerated in today's ninja world. If someone wants to be great, he must bear everything and march forward with his heart full of it. Iruka sighed and walked away. He's powerless. Kuroto is the principal, and he can't refuse the principal's orders. Therefore, he'll have to follow them. Kuroto set the gradebook aside and got a copy of the test data from his desk drawer, which he continued to review attentively after Iruka had departed. Kuroto was not idle during Danzo's recovery after the transformation operation. He was concentrating on cell fusion experiments and the Earth Chakra nature clone. The experiment's outcome was also the same this time. Because Kuroto's and Deidara's cells are incompatible, the success rate of the fusion is extremely low. Despite that, he was able to get a large number of eligible samples thanks to his superior technology, of which he selected the most active ones and began to produce 10 Earth Chakra Nature clones with the support of 10 nutrition tanks. And the test data in his grasp right now comes from the 10 Earth Chakra Nature clones. The development of these 10 clones appears to be normal, with no deformity or mutation according to the statistics. As a result, Kuroto has a hard time deciding which clone to develop and train further. I think I'll have to wait a while to decide which of these 10 clones is the best. The clone with the best overall stats will be picked. However, it will take some time to choose that clone. Even with updated technology, clone culture will still take 2 months. Thus, Kuroto predicts that Danzo should have a result before this batch of Earth Chakra Nature clones develops. Hokage Building, Elder Hiruzen's office. "Are you sure of it?" the former Hokage asked Kakashi, holding his tobacco pipe in his hand. "According to my investigation, Danzo-sama has transferred over 1,000 shinobi," Kakashi said, nodding. "And practically all of them have left the village in stealth." Elder Hiruzen's brows furrowed. "Did you manage to figure out where they were going?" "Unfortunately, no. I haven't tracked that as of yet," Kakashi said with a shake of his head. "Danzo has mobilized over 1,000 shinobi at once. What precisely is he trying to do?" Sarutobi Hiruzen was concerned. The news that Danzo surreptitiously mobilized over 1,000 Konoha shinobi may be kept from the rest of the world, but not from Elder Hiruzen, who has ruled Konoha for decades. But the problem is, even if Sarutobi Hiruzen has deduced this, he is stumped as to why Danzo did what he did. "According to the feedback I've gotten, more and more shinobi are being ordered by Danzo-sama," Kakashi said, concerned. "In fact, a large number of Iryo-nin have lately been relocated from Konoha." Sandaime pondered for a moment before muttering, "Does he intend to start a war?" It doesn't take over 1,000 shinobi to start a war with a small country, so this option is indeed possible, especially with Danzo's personality. However, due to the existence of the Akatsuki organization and the Amatsukami organization, nearly all shinobi villages have signed a covenant stating that no war will be started until the threat posed by these two organizations is eradicated. As a result, Hiruzen is quite concerned. He doesn't want Danzo to make a mistake that will make Konoha seem bad. "What should I do now?" Kakashi inquired hurriedly. "We need to find out where the ninja Danzo surreptitiously transferred went and what they're doing," Hiruzen instructed, pausing for a moment before adding, "You should also pay attention to your own safety." "Understood." Kakashi gave a quick nod before disappearing from Elder Hiruzen's office. Whoosh! Elder Hiruzen got up from his seat and strolled back and forth in the office after Kakashi had departed. The more he considered it, the more concerned he was. "Go and convene all the members of the advisory board for an emergency meeting," he commanded the Anbu guards after some thought. Inside an active volcanic cave in the northern portion of the Land of Fire, Orochimaru smiled from the corner of his mouth as he stood atop a cliff, gazing at the massive volcanic cave that smelt like burning sulfur. The volcanic cave in front of him is undoubtedly the location where Danzo will perform the Kekkei Genkai absorption ritual, and hundreds of shinobi from Root are currently busy making various preparations here. According to the plan, these Root shinobi are constructing a ritual altar in the cave's center, fortifying the cave's walls, and a sophisticated chakra transmission line is set up for the chakra transmission array. Orochimaru was ecstatic when he saw this scenario and smiled to himself. Will the ninja world change as a result of what's going to happen tonight? Hey, it's something I'm really looking forward to. Orochimaru was enthusiastic about the approaching Kekkei Genkai absorption ceremony. And why wouldn't he be, after all? He has put in just as much effort as Kuroto. If he were, to be honest, Orochimaru has no regrets. even if the person undergoing the rite is Shimura Danzo, whom he despises. Every cell in his body is ecstatic at the prospect of taking part in a god creation project of this magnitude. Orochimaru has always despised the idea that a person's bloodline determines the upper limit of their strength. What he despises, even more, is the fragility of human existence. Orochimaru has a deep desire to break free from the two cages that imprison all humans in this shinobi world. And now such things are about to happen right in front of his eyes. Something he has always wished for is about to become a reality. Tonight, he's curious to see how the shinobi world will evolve from here. He's curious as to what will happen if this ceremony is successful.